Scott with you once again. We are continuing some discussion on perilous times that are existing in society today. These are real events. These are things that are really happening, and they show us that we're in the last days, because in the last days we'll see perilous times. This is 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. Yesterday, as I shared with you, we talked about and shared about two brothers, dangerous as can be, who fatally stabbed 10 people and seriously wounded 18 others for no apparent reason. They had, the one individual particularly, though I think he was the older brother, had a very, very violent past. So what leads to this? And why does this occur? We used to feel our society was safe, and we used to feel that there were things in place that were deterrents, and people would back off doing something that was wild and crazy because of justice and incarceration, being put in prison and so on. But our times today are changing, and they're changing indirectly. Indirectly, we could say our government is helping create perilous times. Now, I know that you may not agree with me, but let me at least share some thoughts with you today. The main perpetrator in this situation had 59 prior criminal convictions of various kinds. His convictions consisted of threats to people, assaulting people with weapons, even assaulting a police officer. He was involved in robberies and forced people into robberies. Now, his actions were incomprehensible. For instance, the newspapers reported that he got angry at two people in a restaurant and stabbed them with a fork. Who does this? Another instance, he went outside of a building, out of a store, I believe it was, accosted a man and beat him unconscious. Who does this? Another instance, he was in a home. The police were commanding him or demanding that he come out of the home. He refused. When he did come out, he kicked a police officer in the face and in the head. Who does this? So he was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. And our system works in such a fashion that you don't have to serve the full sentence. You reach a certain point, and there's a statutory provision for your release. So he was released on parole. But even at that time, the psychologist said that he was a risk for spousal violence, and he was a high risk to reoffend with violence. So their best analysis was, this man is dangerous, and yet he still was released on parole. That occurred in the summer of 2021. He violated his parole. He had his parole less or restricted. He showed a little bit of improvement during that further restriction, and they released him again on parole in February of 2022. Now, here's what I read in the newspaper, our national paper. I was shocked by it. Let me read a portion of it to you. Here was the parole board's direction, their decision. They said, "It is our opinion that he will not pose an undue risk on his release, and that his release will contribute to the protection of society as a law-abiding citizen." Really? I think they were wrong. They released him in February, and here in early September, he and his brother stabbed 10 people to death. 18 were wounded. And he had no reason to do it at all. Innocent people met their untimely end or were severely injured. Many of them were protecting other family members. Folks, here's the problem. The justice system has been recreated. I studied law and became a lawyer in the 1980s. Practiced for about 17 years. I didn't do a lot of criminal work, but I studied criminal law, and the rules were pretty straightforward. You break the law, you go to jail. You don't get out. But since then, things have been softened, changed. We want to protect the individual's psychic. Here's what's happened. Our governments have passed legislation. Parole boards have changed rules, or in fact, they're enforcing rules that have changed, I should say. And we now protect the guilty and we leave the innocent to fend for themselves. Things are wrong. Things are upside down. What I'm really saying is this: perilous times exist all across the system. They're not just in the criminal offense, they occur across the system. The system has allowed things to be created in this fashion. It exists all through our society. We're in the last days. See you tomorrow. Call you blessed. Amen. Bye.